The house Maya grew up in was never silent, yet somehow she learned to move through it like a ghost. Voices filled the rooms, footsteps echoed down the hallway, but her own presence always seemed to fade into the background. She wasn't mistreated or intentionally pushed aside, she was simply overlooked, the quiet middle child in a family too busy, too distracted, and too tangled in their own chaos to notice the way her shoulders slowly curled inward. This is where the psychology of the ignored child truly begins, not in dramatic moments, but in the tiny, everyday absences that shape how a person learns to see themselves. Maya had mastered the art of being low maintenance. She didn't ask for help with homework. She didn't complain when plans changed. She didn't raise her voice even when her heart was breaking. To her family, this made her easy. To Maya, it made her invisible. And as she grew older, silence became her safest space. Scientists often talk about how children create internal stories about who they are, and Maya's story was simple: if no one looked her way, she must not be worth looking at. It's a quiet belief that follows many ignored children well into adulthood, shaping their confidence, relationships, and sense of belonging. But the truth is, Maya wasn't born quiet. She had once been curious, loud, full of bright ideas. She used to run into rooms eager to share them, only to be met with distracted nods or rushed acknowledgments. Slowly, she learned the psychology of stepping back, how to shrink herself to avoid the disappointment of being unheard. What makes this story even more complicated is that her parents never realized it was happening. They thought she was independent. They thought she was fine. And that misunderstanding is at the heart of so many ignored children. The world sees a calm exterior, never noticing the quiet ache underneath. Everything began to change on her 12th birthday. A small moment, something ordinary, something no one in her family even remembers, became the turning point that forced Maya to confront how invisible she had felt for years. It happened so quickly that even she questioned whether she was overreacting. But the moment it occurred, a single thought hit her with startling clarity: if I don't speak now, I might disappear completely. What happened that day would reveal the emotional truth Maya had never dared to say out loud, and it would set her on a path she never expected. Maya never forgot the feeling she had on that 12th birthday, even though she could barely explain it at the time. The house was busy that afternoon, her older brother rushing out to meet friends, her younger sister crying over a missing toy, her parents trying to juggle errands and deadlines. Everyone was moving in different directions, and Maya was used to that rhythm. She didn't expect a big celebration, but she had hoped, quietly, that someone would remember. Just one person. And when the day slipped by like any other, she felt a strange mix of sadness and numbness settle inside her. It wasn't the forgotten birthday that hurt the most, it was how normal the forgetfulness felt. In the weeks after, she started noticing things she had ignored before. She paid attention to how conversations passed over her, how decisions were made without asking what she wanted, how she could enter a room and no one would look up. It wasn't that her family didn't love her, they were simply caught up in their own storms. But for a child trying to understand her place in the world, those small moments built a powerful message. She began to study her own behavior, the way ignored children often do, quietly, carefully, trying to figure out what made them blend into the background. She wondered if she was too quiet, too shy, too unremarkable. Maybe this was who she was meant to be. But there were signs even she didn't fully understand. Her teachers would describe her as thoughtful, observant, a little distant. She did well in school, but rarely raised her hand, afraid that speaking up would only highlight how invisible she felt. She made friends, but even with them, she held the most personal parts of herself back, keeping them tucked away like fragile glass. The psychology of the ignored child is subtle, shaping the mind in slow, quiet ways, and Maya was living proof of it. Then something shifted. Over time, Maya began noticing moments that didn't quite add up, little hints that maybe her quietness wasn't the whole story. She remembered overhearing her mother once say, "Maya's fine. She never needs anything," spoken with relief rather than concern. She remembered how her father praised her independence, not realizing it came from feeling overlooked rather than confident. These comments settled into her mind like puzzle pieces that didn't fit, leaving her wondering who she really was underneath the calm surface everyone assumed she had. And as Maya moved into her teenage years, those unanswered questions only grew sharper. The tension between who she appeared to be and who she actually felt herself becoming started to widen, forming a quiet gap that no one around her seemed to notice. But Maya felt it every day, heavier with each passing month, especially when a new situation arose, one that would force her to confront the truth she had been avoiding since that forgotten birthday, and push her into a moment she couldn't quietly slip away from. Maya was 15 when the quiet tension inside her finally began to break into the surface of her daily life. It wasn't dramatic or loud, nothing in her world ever was, but the shift was real. It started when her school counselor, Ms. Lena, noticed something her family never had. Maya had stayed behind after class one day, waiting for the crowd to clear before slipping out unnoticed. But Ms. Lena stopped her, gently asking why she always waited until everyone was gone. Maya shrugged it off, but her counselor's eyes softened in a way the